Oh, hello. Of course I was gonna get to this. I just have a big watch list accumulated at the moment, so I apologize that I could not review this earlier. But I did want to. There was a lot I wanted to say about this movie, which I was hearing so much about, and now that I finally got a chance to see it, I'm gonna talk to you guys about it. So without further ado, here we go. Terrifier 2 was directed by Damien Leone and is the sequel to Terrifier, as you probably guessed. I actually saw the first Terrifier movie right before this one. I did a bit of a double feature because I hadn't actually seen it, and so looking back on that and seeing the journey to this one is quite interesting. The first one was made on a relatively low budget, which you can really tell during the film, but it still managed to make effective use of its more gory sequences, and it is effective in also making you feel absolutely livid and grossed out. And Art the Clown is this absolute psycho, which feels like, Pennywise on steroids. So naturally, I was pretty excited about seeing what you would do with Terrifier 2 because one ends on a bit of a cliffhanger that, oh, he's still alive. And so I was curious to see what would happen in 2, and this starts pretty much there, and then it continues into a new story about a year later where you're following a new character named Sienna, played by Lauren Lavera, and she's starting to get a feeling that something's gonna go wrong on Halloween night. And eventually, it turns out Art is back in town and he's piling up bodies once again. What actually got me interested in wanting to see Terrifier 2 were the headlines that were coming out of screenings. People were talking about walking out and then throwing up outside, and these awful, abysmal images that people were being subjected to with crowds that some could just not take. And so I was like, okay, I wonder what it is. I've seen a lot of grossed out imagery in movies, but God knows what this is gonna be. But the best way to describe Terrifier 2 is like if you took that sequence in Alien versus Predator Requiem where the pred alien is like with the pregnant woman, like that kill, you know what I'm talking about? Imagine that throughout an entire movie. That's what you get with Terrifier 2's kills. It's incredibly visceral. There's a sequence in a bedroom that seems to have gotten a lot of attention, and it's pretty visceral. There's no other way to describe it. It's a very crazy sequence, but it's directed pretty well. All of those sequences are pretty crazy. I respect the fact that with both Terrifier movies, Damien Leone looks like he seems to know what he's doing. And this is a better movie than the first one, I think. I mean, the first one's alright. This one is definitely, one, the budget is higher on this one, and also it feels like he's improved a bit as a director. Although it does have a lot of similar directional beats as compared to the first one. Like there's a lot of repeat. But that makes sense, some continuity and stuff like that. And Art the Clown in this is crazier, so there's definitely that as well. I mean, like I said, Pred Alien. I am making a very direct comparison to how crazy he is over here. Those sequences are absolutely wild. But something I really liked in this movie is also that it gives a little more characterization. Something I found the first one to lack was that. And I know it wants to be a simple slasher horror movie, which is fine. But I like the fact that this one actually gives you a bit of a layered final girl approach because Sienna is someone you spend a lot of time getting to know her and her family life. And while it's pretty simple, it's still very effective that when the shit hits the fan, you're rooting for her to get out of that situation alive. And Lauren Lavera is excellent in the movie. I think she does a really, really good job. And I've seen a lot of praise for her on social media, and all of it's warranted in my humble opinion, of course. I think she is really, really good in the film. And very much, I see an entry into that pantheon of like horror icons, at least especially in the modern syntax, because there's always these characters who you look up to. It's like, oh, they were in this horror movie that we really, really loved, I could definitely see a list somewhere down the line where she's added to Sidney Prescott's lane or someone like Laurie Strode. I mean, I definitely see that happening. I don't know if it will, but I mean, anything's possible. I think the film, eventually when it comes to the stuff that you want to see, It builds into that well. There's some dream sequence stuff which I don't know if it fully worked. Like there are times in the movie where you'll see visions and some things play out. They're trying to build on a mythos with this series, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure if that fully works. Like there are some things implied at one point which were a little weird to me. Like I mean, the movie is weird as hell, but there were some things where I thought, well, that really wasn't there in the first movie. I mean, it was pretty much like this thing is crazy, but then you get to sort of like an It Chapter 2 thing where it's like, oh, there's a little more to it, and here's the extra layer of mythos we're adding over it. So yeah, this movie definitely is. It feels like a more fucked up version of all of those things. It like takes all the elements of like stuff like that and then sort of packages them into what you're seeing. It definitely takes that and twists those to fit Art the Clown's entire crusade. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Although, like I said, when you do move into the more fantastical elements of it, it's not always perfect. It's a little bumpy at times. It's also 2 hours and 18 minutes long, which I don't think it needed to be. It's slightly longer than I think it should have been, which, I mean, it didn't bother me, the length per se, but I was like, why is it 2 hours and 18 minutes? It feels like it sort of goes on and on for a little bit, and I'm not sure if I totally think that is warranted. Still, I enjoyed myself with Terrifier 2. I don't want to give too much away. Watch it on your own discretion. I mean, if you can stomach it in some cases, please, proceed with caution, because there are people who have probably had visceral reactions to this movie, and there's a good reason they have. So I'm very curious to hear what other people have to say. I know I'm coming at this late, like I said. I'm sorry about that. But I still had a very good time with it, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's in theaters now and on Screambox. So, there's a lot of avenues for you that are available. I'm going to give Terrifier 2 an 8 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.